Welcome to Opera 101. I'm Leah Edwards, General Director of Holy City Arts and Lyric Opera.
And I'm Dimitri Pitas, Artistic Director for Halo. And this is a two-part series in which we will introduce you or reacquaint you to 6 of the world's most performed operas.
As was mentioned in our first class, everybody has different tastes, but we are certain that there is something for everyone in each of these beloved works.
Thanks again for being here and enjoy the class. Now let's hand it over to our hostess, Margaret Fournier.
Hello. It's nice to see you all today. Thank you for coming. We're going to talk today about, like we said, the 6 most popular and most frequently performed operas. We're going to do that, 3 of them this week and 3 of them next week. We're going to take a closer look and analyze what makes them so popular that people never get tired of them. The 3 we will look at this week are La Traviata, Madame Butterfly, and Carmen. One thing that will become evident right away is that this is going to be a study in heroines. All of the operas feature heroines who are so compelling and really tug at your heartstrings. But one thing that stands out about them, they are all strong, empowered women. Their ultimate fates are the result of decisions that they make. La Traviata is consistently crowned the most performed opera in the world, receiving thousands of performances a year. Composed by Verdi, its libretto is written by his frequent collaborator, Piave. We learned in last week's interview the importance of the relationship between composer and librettist. This pair forged 11 works together, including the beloved operas Rigoletto, Macbeth, and La Forza del Destino. Mary Jane Phillips Matz, a Verdi scholar, noted that Verdi always harried him unmercifully, often having his work revised by others. But Piave rewarded him with dog-like devotion, and the two remained on terms of sincere friendship. La Traviata is based on the semi-autobiographical French novel, The Lady of the Camellias, by 23-year-old Alexandre Dumas Fils. Fils means son in French. It is spelled F-I-L-S. And I mention this to differentiate between Dumas Fils and his father, Alexandre Dumas, also a French novelist whose notable works include The Count of Monte Cristo and The Three Musketeers. The novel was an overnight sensation, shocking the literati of Europe because of its scandalous love affair. Chances are that Verdi had read the novel before attending its theatrical adaptation in Paris, but after the performance of the play, Verdi was certain this contemporary tale, ripped from the headlines, was ripe for operatic treatment. La Traviata is an intimate domestic opera that focuses exclusively on characters who look and act like those in the audience, in other words, regular people. Verdi gave musical forms that at that time were reserved for kings, queens, and heroes of foreign lands to real people. In doing so, Verdi elevated the inner life of Violetta and her lover, pushing the art form forward and setting the stage for the approaching Verismo era. Vero in Italian means true, and that is what was being ushered in, stories about real everyday people with their accompanying emotions and foibles. Its themes of love, sacrifice, disease, and misfortune are still painfully with us, and its characters are still mirrored in the audience. Violetta, the heroine, is a courtesan in Paris who just met a man she feels drawn to. She has debated the pros and cons of a relationship versus her free partying lifestyle. Finally, she succumbs to the pull of love. But we shortly learn of trouble brewing as we learn early on that Violetta is ill. The opera has a total of 4 scenes, The scenes alternate between large party scenes and lots of chorus and much gaiety going on, and more intimate scenes with deep and compelling emotion. The first scene opens with a big party going on at Violetta's house. Alfredo, the hero, has been pressured into singing a brindisi, a drinking song, which has become the most famous in all opera. I would venture to say that many Italians know this word for word.
Poiché quello che ho al cuore onnipotente va. Viviamo, amor, amore, fra i calici più d'anima chi avrà.
As the second act opens, Violetta and Alfredo are living in a beautiful home in the country, away from all the Parisian activity, and they are blissfully happy. Alfredo has left to run some errands, namely to stop the selling of Violetta's belongings to continue their carefree lifestyle in the country. He is having some remorse that Violetta has been footing the bill for their idyllic life. While he is away, the real heart of the drama comes in an encounter between Violetta and Alfredo's father, Germain. He has come to ask her to leave Alfredo for the sake of his family. Let's go back one more time to that George Bernard Shaw's definition of opera as a soprano and a tenor wanting to make love, but prevented from doing so by a baritone. We've brought this up during each and every class. Well, here we have another case and a prime example of the baritone coming between the soprano and the tenor. Alfredo comes home to find his father and is grief-stricken to learn that Violetta has left him. His father sings this beautiful aria about their homeland of Provence, trying to entice Alfredo to come back there. This is a very popular baritone aria and often sung in concert. Another note about this particular excerpt is it is being sung by one of the Metropolitan Opera's most endearing and acclaimed baritones, Brooklyn-born Robert Merrill. He was born in 1919, the son of Polish emigres. His father, Abraham, was a shoe salesman, and mother, Lillian, was an operatic soprano who performed in concert before her marriage. His mother was the one who encouraged and guided Robert during his operatic training. After an initially promising career as a semi-pro pitcher subsided. His first audition for the Metropolitan Opera in 1941 was not successful. Robert finally made his operatic debut in 1944 in Aida in Trenton, New Jersey, then successfully joined the Met the following year, taking his first company bow as Germain in La Traviata. Merrill was deemed one of the finest Verdi baritones of his generation. Unlike most of his peers, Robert extended himself willingly into radio, film, nightclub, and TV arenas, so some of you may remember him. To this day, his recorded rendition of the national anthem is used to start New York Yankees games when they do not have a live performer. So this character, Germain, was the first role Robert Merrill sang at the Met. Here's Di Provenza.
Di Provenza e mar il sol, chi dal cor ti cancelo, chi dal cor ti cancelo, di Provenza e mar il sol, al nattio fulgente sol, qual destino ti furò, qual destino ti furò, al nattio fulgente sol, o rammento pur nel duol, di gioia che brillò, e che pace con la sol, tutte splendere ancor può, e che pace con la sol, tutte splendere ancor può. Dio mi guidò, Dio mi guidò, Dio mi guidò. Al tuo vecchio genitor, tu non sai quanto soffrì, tu non sai quanto soffrì, il tuo vecchio genitor, e lontano di squalor, il suo tetto si coprì, il suo tetto si coprì, di squalor, ma si al fin ti trova ancor, suoi me speme non fallì, e la voce dell'olor, in te appieno naudi, ma si al fin ti trova ancor, suoi me speme non fallì, Dio me Dio laude, Dio mezzo.
Well, it all works because the two lovers are separated. Only Alfredo doesn't know why until the very end. The last act has their reuniting, but in the sadness of Violetta's impending death. Violetta is suffering from tuberculosis, which was raging at that time. The entire last scene is Violetta's death scene, which in typical operatic fashion allows her to sing quite beautifully until the end. Like most of opera's great heroines, the intensity and bravery with which Violetta lives her short life makes her an enduring dramatic figure. She makes such a sacrifice for the man she loves, thinking her actions will be better for him and his family. Now let's move on to Madame Butterfly. Madame Butterfly, or Cio-Cio San is her name, is the epitome of a tragic heroine. Puccini is the composer, and 3 of the top 10 operas most performed were part of his work. We will look at another one next week. The story of the opera is really simple enough. An American naval officer arranges a temporary marriage to a Japanese geisha while he is stationed in Japan. This was done through a marriage broker and was a common samurai custom. This was an actual practice involving geisha girls who were trying to earn a living. Normally, the geisha girls knew the program and went along with it. Trouble is, this woman was quite young and apparently naive because she took it all seriously. She actually renounces her religion and her family to give herself wholeheartedly to the marriage, hoping for a secure future. The naval officer's tour of duty ends. He returns to the US and marries an American woman. Cio-Cio San, in the meantime, gives birth to his child and awaits his return. When he does return, it is with an American wife, and they have come to adopt the child and take him back to America. The geisha makes the heart-wrenching decision to let her child go, thinking of her son's future. Cio-Cio San, in noble samurai tradition, commits suicide. Puccini had such a keen sense of theater. He knew how to express emotions in the extreme and was blessed with a great gift of seemingly endless melody. It is easy to shed a tear in his works. His tragic heroines are very well known, and none are really as tragic as Madame Butterfly. The story evolved over different iterations, including a French novel, an American story, and an American play by David Belasco, which Puccini saw. Interestingly, Puccini saw the play in London in English. He did not understand English, but he connected right away with the underlying human tragedy in the story. His version is now considered the real one. The story has been used in many other art forms. There have been numerous film renditions, some bearing little resemblance to the one we know. We've also seen a play and movie, M. Butterfly, as well as a blockbuster Broadway musical, Miss Saigon, where the story is moved to the Vietnam War. There was even a novel that came out a few years ago called Butterfly's Child, about the boy and his return to Japan as an adult. Now, another factor in the evolution of Puccini's opera was that around this time, near the turn of the century, there was a fascination with things from the Orient. The exotic was very appealing and spawned many enterprises. There was a huge Japanese exhibit in London that also inspired Gilbert and Sullivan's The Mikado. So this East meets West theme was very attractive to the public. Madame Butterfly is one of the most finely drawn human beings on the operatic stage. All she does makes perfect sense to her. She goes through a psycho-spiritual life journey within the confines of a couple of hours on stage. She must portray a credible journey from innocent victim to a fully realized woman who takes charge of her own destiny. She must be able to convey every aspect of human emotion in her voice. And she gets little help from the other characters. The tenor role is unusually limited. It just serves a single purpose, and he doesn't even appear that much in the opera. This opera is much more about Butterfly and her reaction to the tenor's soul action. She is on stage for most of the opera. And by the way, it is not uncommon today for the audience to shout boos when the tenor takes a curtain call. That really means he's played his part well because he's a cad. Here is our own Dimitri Pitas experiencing his success in the role. Musically, Puccini is supreme master of both beautiful melody and very sophisticated use of the orchestra. The orchestra is constantly telling us what is happening. He is great at creating atmosphere in music. He quotes Asian figures and bits of music in many ways to create the atmosphere of Japan. He famously uses the Star-Spangled Banner to signify the difference in cultures. It seems a little laughable, but the Star-Spangled Banner did not become the national anthem until 1931, long after the opera was written, so it would not have been widely known by audiences around the world. The song was used by the US military as a song for ceremonial purposes, but was not yet the national anthem. We will hear an example of this in our first excerpt. The naval officer Pinkerton has arrived, as has the American consul in Nagasaki, the locale of the opera. Pinkerton is describing his philosophy of the fearless Yankee roaming the world in search of experience and pleasure. Here's our first reference to the Star-Spangled Banner, which is used whenever Pinkerton or his country is referenced. Listen to Pinkerton's cavalier attitude toward all of this. The music really tells us what Puccini thinks of Pinkerton. He isn't the classic picture of an evil villain, but is a type who can cause as much pain and sorrow as any villain. So here is Pinkerton and the consul Sharpless.
L'uomo esperto ne profitta, certo.
America forever. Now we have the Here Comes the Bride moment. Madame Butterfly and her girlfriends ascend to the house for the ceremony. This beautiful and colorful chorus. Butterfly's voice is heard before she even appears, and the strength of her love can be heard in her music. It is in such contrast to Pinkerton's attitude in the last excerpt. The Russian sounds are definitely, the Asian sounds are definitely heard in the orchestra in this part.
Siamo giunte, B.F. Pinkerton giù.
That high soft note at the end is a high D, which is the highest in the soprano range. It is very difficult to sing it softly and maintain it for so long. In Act 2, for 3 years, Butterfly has been living with her servant, Suzuki, and her child in extreme poverty without having heard from Pinkerton. She prays to God for Pinkerton's return. He knows nothing about the child. Pinkerton has promised her to return when the roses bloom. She dispels Suzuki's doubts. She is sure that one day the ship with Pinkerton will appear. The aria, Un bel dì, is about how the day will be when Pinkerton comes home. It is also one of the most famous and beautiful arias in the literature for sopranos. Butterfly's Dream inspired Puccini to create a great aria, perhaps even his most popular. Here is Un bel dì. She ends up committing suicide in an act of maternal sacrifice, believing her child will have a better life without her. It is an extremely emotional ending, not a dry high in the house. Next, we're going to move to Carmen, another famous heroine, but this one could not be more different from Violetta and Madame Butterfly. This is Carmen. She is probably, arguably, the sexiest and most provocative heroine in opera. The choices she makes in her relationships, though, seal her violent and tragic end. And if you remember what we learned in our first class, this is an example of a leading lady being sung by a mezzo-soprano. The composer is Georges Bizet, a French composer who was really breaking new ground with this opera. He introduced a dramatic realism that would spread into the opera world and beyond. The opera takes place in Spain and centers around Spanish gypsies and a life of thievery and deceit. It is about people so much different from the people in the other two operas we just looked at. The opera score is filled with seductive melodies, syncopated rhythms, colorful orchestration, and bold lyrics. Carmen works in a cigar factory, and the opening scene takes place in the square outside the factory as the whistle blows for the women inside to take a break. The square fills with young men eager to see the seductive women who are all smoking and singing about the fickleness of love. The one they really want to see is Carmen. When she arrives, the men start begging her for love, and this is where she sings her famous habanera about the unpredictability of love. It can't be tamed or forced.
C'est certain. L'amour est un oiseau rebelle que nul ne peut apprivoiser. Et c'est bien donc qu'on l'appelle, s'il lui convient de refuser. Les feux menacent au priel, les parle bien, l'autre se tait. C'est l'autre que je préfère, il n'a rien dit, mais il me plaît. Il n'a jamais connu de jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, faut garde à toi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, si je t'aime, prends garde à toi.
Carmen tricks a young soldier, Don Jose, we saw him in there, into helping her escape after she is arrested. He actually deserts from the army and follows her to visit her band of gypsies. There is a counterpoint to Carmen in the character of Micaela. She is the girl that Don Jose is supposed to be marrying and the one he should be with. Micaela is the soprano, and she very sweetly tries to beg him to come to his senses, to no avail. The next scene is very colorful and exciting with much raucous singing and dancing. They are in a gypsy tavern, and Carmen and her friends are entertaining the officers who are there. Note the exciting dancing.
L'étrangle de ces strutateurs, avec un éclat métallique, et sur cette étrange musique, les tingarellas se lèveraient. Tambour des basses calaient le train, et les guitares forcenaient, princesses des mains obstinées, même chanson, même refrain, même chanson.
Next, we will meet the other man besides Don Jose that Carmen is attracted to. I should say one of the other men, but this is the Toreador. He easily captures the audience with his brash virility in the bull ring, his booming bass voice, all of which is described in his big entrance number, which will be very familiar to you. This is the Toreador song.
Seigneur, Seigneur, car avec les soldats, il est torero, et s'entendre, pour plaisir, ils ont les combats. Le cirque est plein, c'est jour de fête, le cirque est plein du haut en bas. Les spectateurs, elles ont la tête, les spectateurs s'éterpellent. Oui, songe en combattant, car l'œil noir te regarde et que l'amour t'attend. Toréador, l'amour t'attend. Silence, ah, que se passe-t-il? Le triste l'instant, le taureau s'élance en bondissant comme Miguel. Il s'élance, il entre, il frappe, un cheval lourd, entraînant un picador. Bravo taureau, hurle la foule, il vient, il frappe encore, on sait quoi, c'est bonne ligne, la fureur est pour, le ciel est plein de sang, on se sauve, on franchit les grilles, c'est au tour maintenant, allons, regardez, allons, oui, songe en combattant, car l'œil noir te regarde et que l'amour t'attend. Toréador, l'amour t'attend.
Carmen, of course, starts treating Don Jose very unkindly. He is deeply in love with her, but she, of course, is fickle. The end is very exciting as Carmen gets ready to go into the bull ring to watch the toreador. Don Jose confronts her in a jealous rage. He stabs Carmen to death as the cheers of the crowd are heard from inside the bull ring. It's a very exciting opera and indeed a tragedy, but far different from our first two heroines. All of the characters in this opera make choices that may make you question your own feelings about each of them. So you may not shed a tear for Carmen, unlike the demise of Madame Butterfly. But like the others, Carmen's fate came from decisions that she made. Next week, we'll be back again to explore 3 more of the big ones, the most performed operas worldwide. Thank you for coming.
Aren't those great operas and wonderful stories? There's something so invigorating about the dramatic music and the vocal prowess. Tune in next week as we experience 3 more operatic gems: The Magic Flute by Mozart, The Barber of Seville by Rossini, and La Boheme by Puccini.
In the coming weeks, we're going to add resources to our website to help you continue your education. And if you have any questions before then, please feel free to email us at info@holycityarts.org, and we'll be happy to send you personalized recommendations of what to listen to next.
Thanks again for coming, and we hope to see you next week.